Hello everyone, welcome back to Everyday Magic with Foster the Meeple. My name is Jeff, and I am here today to do a list video specific to retro gaming. I'm going to be doing my top 10 NES games of all time. Quick caveat, NES was the first system I owned, and is likely one of my, I think it's top 2 of my favorite consoles of all time. That and SNES are very close to my heart. But yeah, I just want to start it off by, I guess, showing you kind of what I like most in my retro games. So without further ado, let's get started. I did include 2 honorable mentions. And one thing I'll also throw to, it's interesting when you kind of start going through these lists, because like these games have been out for so long that all of the really good games kind of like have risen to the top. So like most people's, top 10s are going to be somewhat similar because there's only so much of a pool to draw from. And I think the really good games just tend to be the ones talked about a lot. But hopefully there's a few on here that maybe you haven't tried or you haven't heard of, and you get interested in and check it out. All right, so my first honorable mention is actually a sports game, which is kind of funny because I don't actually play a ton of sports games on my old consoles. I do in newer consoles, but my older consoles, I don't play a ton of sports games. But my first honorable mention is Blades of Steel. Blades of Steel was the first hockey game I ever played growing up. I have since played a ton of NES hockey games, but Blades of Steel was the one I think my brother and I played so often as kids and caused a ton of arguments. I am Canadian. I grew up playing hockey, so one thing that I loved in this game is that the overtime penalty shot kind of process is a guy standing on the blue line taking a slap shot at the goaltender. I always thought that was hilarious because that's obviously not what happens in real life, but I thought it was really cool. I love the fighting mechanism in this game where it's basically like you're just hitting, like my brother and I would like put the controller down on the ground and try and tap A and B as quickly as he could in order to, knock each other out. And then it's just, the person that loses the fight gets the penalty. It's amazing. I love this game so much. It has a ton of nostalgia for me. Sorry, Juno wants to be part of this video. Hi. But yeah, Blades of Steel is my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention is a game that I never really see talked about at all. And it's a game I still love. I just recently played it again after a very, very long time and fell in love with it all over again. And that game is called Captain Skyhawk. Captain Skyhawk is a top-down view of a F1 fighter, and you're going through all of these levels, basically just trying to kill as many enemies as you can before you get to the end boss, which is normally like a base. And this base is basically 4 spheres with a main circle sphere, and it's just shooting at you, and you need to destroy it. In between those levels, there are like kind of these mini game levels where it actually becomes a behind the jet level where all of these alternative fighter jets are flying in front of you, and you're just basically trying to destroy as many of them as you can. And the reason why it's kind of this like just kill as many enemies as you can game is once you get through that level, so it's always a base level and then a mini game level, and then you go to dock at the space station because for some reason in this game your F1 fighter has a space base, and the main objective of the game, the ultimate boss, is like this alien robot space creature. I don't know, it's super weird, but I love it. So anyway, when you get to the docking station, you can upgrade your plane. So you can give it cannon upgrades, missile upgrades, bomb upgrades, etc., etc. Some of these levels also include like a bombing mission, so you have to kind of like place the bomb into the corresponding areas in order to beat the level. It's amazing. I love it every time I play it. It's very, very difficult. I think I've beaten it a couple times as a kid, but now in later life, I basically need to use a Game Genie in order to beat it because I don't have the same sort of reflexes as I did when I was a kid. But Captain Skyhawk, if you've not played it, it's so good. I love it so much. So we can get to the actual list the top 10 or my top 10 NES games. And I just want to quickly shout out, I've not played every game. So if there's a game on here that you're like, how could you not have this on there? Either I haven't played it or it's just not one I like as much as you do, and that's okay. My 10th favorite NES game of all time is a game I think a lot of people have probably played and heard of, and that is Blaster Master. Blaster Master is incredibly difficult. It's like jointly platformer, but then depending on levels, it becomes this top-down view. So basically, you're playing Blaster Master in your little tank car thing, and you're basically going around these levels trying to navigate and upgrade and get through the level via platforming. But on occasion, your guy can get out, depending on level, and go into these areas to get upgrades, and then it becomes this top-down view where your pilot is getting out and going through kind of these maze levels. Blaster Master is one that I played a ton of as a kid. I've never beaten this game. I think it's one of the most difficult platformers out there, but one I very, very much enjoy playing even to this day. My number 9 favorite game of all time is another sports game. The only other sports game, well, I guess there's one that could be technically a sports game, but the only actual, like, pure sports game in my opinion, and that is Tecmo Super Bowl. Tecmo Super Bowl is just a football game. There's nothing really more to say about it. It's one of, I think, the best retro football games that exists. There's still people that play this game. They have updated rosters and championships and all these things. I've not played any of those recent iterations with any of the changes. I've only played the original game. But this is where that whole Bo Jackson nostalgia, or not nostalgia, like legend came from. The Raiders in this game have Bo Jackson, and he's basically untouchable. You can't even tackle him. He can run around the field 100 times, and it got to the point where when my brother and I played this, similar to Blades of Steel, we had to ban the Raiders. You just could not play as them because you would win. I still play this recently. It drives Jamie absolutely nuts because before you hike the ball in this, it just says hut, hut, hut over and over and over again until you hike the ball. And Jamie always knows when I'm playing it because she makes comments about it every time. Tecmo Super Bowl, love it. Even if you don't like sports games, I think it's one that you would enjoy. My number 8 favorite NES game of all time is a real banger. And I think going to be a bit of a shock that it's not higher. And that's Super Mario Bros. 3, which in my opinion is probably the best platformer of all time. It like defined the genre. And the ability of Nintendo to put this game on the NES and make it look as good as it does is incredible. I think everyone at this point knows what Super Mario Bros. 3 is. It was the first game I ever owned on NES, and it's the one I probably experienced the most of. What I love a ton about this game is there's so many little secrets that now everyone knows about, but back then when you were playing it, like finding the whistles in the fortress or finding the whistle in level 3 of World 1 was so amazing to experience. In like being able to go behind the end screen, because technically like the theme of Mario 3 is that they're like in a play and like you can actually go behind the screen and find secrets and stuff. It's a masterpiece of a game, and it probably should be higher, but these other games just have a little bit more nostalgia for me and did things a little bit differently than Super Mario Bros. 3 does. But it's incredible, and it to this day holds up. All right, my number 7 favorite NES game of all time, ironically enough, is Super Mario Bros. 2. And there's a reason for this, specifically, personally to me, because I think objectively Mario Bros. 3 is the better game. Super Mario Bros. 2 is a bit higher on the list only because this is like the only game my sister would play. I have 2 older sisters, and my younger of the 2 would play this game with me like religiously. And it's still one of those things that every time I think about this game, I think about her. And it's really just that nostalgia piece that just bumps it up a little bit more than Super Mario 3 does. I know that Super Mario 2 technically isn't a Mario game. It was like a reskin of Doki Doki Panic. But I loved that now knowing all of that and playing a Mario game that's like somewhat different. Like it's the only Mario game that has like a health meter. It's the only game that has like characters that platform differently. Like Mario plays different than Toadstool. Toadstool plays differently than Princess Peach, and Luigi has his crazy, like, weird floaty jump. It also doesn't have Bowser at the end. It has this weird frog I can't remember the name of. But there's just so much to Super Mario 2 that resonates with me from a nostalgia piece that just puts it slightly above Super Mario 3 for me. All right, number 6 on the list is, I guess, the final sports game if you want to consider racing as part of the sports genre, even though this is with RC cars, so maybe it isn't. But that is RC Pro Am. I've recently played this. If you go check out my stream of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, I beat it and then had a little bit time left on the stream, so then I ended up playing RC Pro Am. So if you want to go check it out, if you haven't seen it before, you can go check out that stream over on Foster the Meeple. Our other YouTube channel, it is hosted there currently. RC Pro Am is a RC racing game that has no end. Basically, you're just going through level by level, race by race, trying to be first, second, or third. If you're ever in fourth, there's 4 cars in the game, you are out. And you're collecting letters on each racetrack, spelling out Nintendo. And when you spell out Nintendo, you get a car upgrade. So the first cars are actually trucks. The second one is like this SUV looking vehicle, and then the third one is more streamlined racing car. And it gets progressively harder and harder to win this game. Your cars get progressively faster. It was one of the first Mario Kart-esque games that I ever played. It's got rockets in it that you can shoot at your opponents. It's got weather that comes up. It's got oil slicks. It's got these like walls that will come up randomly on tracks, and it is incredibly challenging. Again, this is a game that just there's no end to it. You just go for as long as you can, and then eventually the AI just becomes unbeatable. There is this really cool thing in this game that used to frustrate the hell out of me as a kid, but now I think it's kind of funny. The orange car in this game randomly will just boost its energy and boost its power and go like 200 times the speed of all the other cars, and it ends up just lapping you. And it's just like, I remember as a kid being like, why is this happening? And it's just, I don't know, if there's a trigger and you know why it triggers, please tell me, because I've never actually known. It makes this really weird like sound, and then all of a sudden the orange car is just gone. Anyway, RC Pro Am, one I still love. It's so good. It's such a good racing game, and one I've had a ton of fun playing. Next up on the list, number 5, we have Battletoads and Double Dragon. So this was a combination of 2 individual games, or I shouldn't say individual games, but individual game IPs, Battletoads, and then also Double Dragon. I've played those games separately, Battletoads being impossible in my opinion, and I've also played Double Dragon, but I really like the combination of the 2 IPs together. You get to basically pick at the beginning of the game if you want to play as the Battletoads or play as the Double Dragon guys, and also ultimately it's just this massive beat 'em up. One of the memories I have the most of is being able to pick up the, I think it's in level 2 or 3, you fight these like kind of like guys on stilts, or like these tall bone guys, and like their leg bone will break off and you can grab it and then like pile drive people into the ground. It's just like a silly beat 'em up, but I absolutely adore it, and it's my favorite, I think, of that genre, with River City Ransom, and again Double Dragon, Battletoads, and those other beat 'em ups. I think this one takes the cake for me. I actually was lying, because there's one higher, and I'm just now realizing it. So my number 4 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, which is another beat 'em up that is actually my favorite. I did, again, play TMNT recently over on Foster the Meeple, if you want to go check that out. I played this one religiously as a kid. This would be the game I probably turned to the most on the NES console. There's just something... I love the music in this game. I love the Ninja Turtles were a huge part of my childhood, so I love the IP. I thought the villains were interesting. I love the lore of this game with like the port over from the arcade version and what they changed. It's incredibly difficult. It's so hard. But yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, is just, it's a perfect game, in my opinion. I love everything about it. All right, my number 3 favorite game on the NES of all time is the game that introduced me to like RPGs, which are now my favorite genre of video game by far. I played this long before I had played the original two Legends of Zelda on NES, and that is Fox Xanadu. I actually had this. This is one of the first games I owned after, the Super Mario 3. Fox Xanadu, I remember going to rent this game, if you remember renting games as a kid. I rented it. The cover of this game gives nothing away. You have no idea what you're about to play when you see the cover of this game. I just saw the cover. I thought it was beautiful. I brought it home and started playing it, and it was this really new genre of game for me. It had upgrades, and like this character could get wing boots and like death balls and all of these things that like I was like, what's happening? Like, I'm upgrading this character. It's like this story-driven narrative. There's like inns you can go into, and they all have these NPCs with stories. And honestly, I owe so much to this game because it really brought me into this whole world of fantasy and RPGs, and honestly, like board games and role-playing games and D&D. It shaped my entire existence at this point, and I owe it a ton because I loved it so much. And it's still one. I've recently was just talking about this game with some friends and told him to get a copy, and he's now going to play through it, I believe. But Fox Xanadu is one it will always be up there for me. Number 2 favorite NES games of all time, slightly, I guess, gets put ahead of Fox Xanadu because I just think it's a better game, even though Fox Xanadu really defined that joy for me. But that is the original Legend of Zelda. It's incredible. It defined, again, to keep stating this, it defined a genre of these top-down Zelda games, these RPG epics, and I didn't play it until later. I actually had played A Link to the Past before I had played this game because my neighbor had an SNES long before I did. Quick caveat, I had systems much later than others did, just due to financial constraints of my family. But I had played Link to the Past before this. But when I got a chance to go back to this game, I was like, oh my god, like it's incredible. Like, it had all of these secrets and all of these weapon upgrades, and like, again, like a full narrative story that you could really dive into. And Zelda is probably my favorite IP in all of gaming consistently. And Legend of Zelda for NES is no exception to that. My number 1 favorite NES game of all time, and I think it's a bit of a shocker. I don't think a lot of people would have this as their number 1, but that is DuckTales. DuckTales is a duck-tailed IP'd platformer where you're basically just going through a bunch of different lands. There's like a space level, there's an Amazon level, there's like a Dracula's castle level, etc., etc. And you're basically just trying to defeat the bosses at the end of the level, and save your nephews, and there's a bunch of different things that happen, but effectively what you're trying to do is just get through each level and collect a bunch of money, because Scrooge loves his money. They've actually re-implemented this game on Steam and redone it. I think originally they had redone it for one of the consoles that I'm not recalling. But you can play this on Steam if you don't have the original console version. But DuckTales is a 10 out of 10 game. Its music is incredible. The platforming is amazing. Being able to like take a golf shot with your cane to like knock rocks to, get access to different areas, or like hopping on your cane as like it's a pogo stick, is just, it's so amazingly fun. I loved it as a kid. I recently replayed it on Steam and beat it again, and it's a game I will continue to play, and probably one I'll play on stream at some point. So I hope you enjoyed this list. I'm going to be doing more of these. I have lots of content I want to talk about, just so you can get to know me and what games I enjoy for multitude of consoles. I'm going to be talking a little bit about my journey a little bit on stream and stuff, so if you're interested in that, feel free to check those out. And yeah, if you have the opportunity to play any of these games, I highly recommend it. If you're watching this and you want to share your favorite games, I'm constantly finding games that people enjoy that I've never played, and so feel free to share that with me. I love hearing what people like to play and why. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe. We hope to see you again soon. Later days.
That's recording and that's recording. Oh, guess what? I don't need to be mic'd up, that's for sure.
It's weird doing list videos on your own. Hi, sweetie. Am I talking too fast? It's just weird because normally I don't talk the whole time. My number 10 favorite game, or yes, my 10 favorite game of, oh my god. Oh, that's a lie because there's one higher. I don't know how to end this.